Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
I am very, very pleased to announce that we have made an arrest in this case. We've arrested Dylan Roof, R-O-O-F, from Lexington, South Carolina. Approximately 30 minutes ago, he was arrested in Shelby, North Carolina, during a traffic stop.
I've had to make statements like this too many times. Communities like this have had to endure tragedies like this too many times. We don't have all the facts, but we do know that, once again, innocent were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun. Now is the time for mourning and for healing. But let's be clear. At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
This is the Savage Nation. Welcome. This is John DePietro sitting in for Dr. Michael Savage. Welcome to be part of the program today. You can call us 1-855-400-SAVAGE. 1-855-400-7282. As always, check out our website. It's michaelsavage.com. You'll see all the latest news and headlines. Keep in mind all the stories that we talk about. You can find them right there, including, of course, the massacre that took place in Charleston, South Carolina. michaelsavage.com, home of the Savage Nation, borders, language, culture. You can also see the latest book, Countdown to Mecca by Michael Savage. Great Father's Day gift. Again, log on to the website at michaelsavage.com. Like you to be part of the program. That is President Obama. As you heard him, he spoke early in the day talking about the tragedy, the horrific massacre that took place. The accused, an odd-looking, confused 21-year-old Dylan Roof. Apparently his father gave him a .45 caliber handgun for his birthday. And right out of the box, President Obama, in talking about this shooting where 9 people have lost their lives, immediately the president starts talking about gun control. And many of the headlines that are out there immediately start talking about gun control. And the president's starting to compare our country with other countries. We're going to talk about that. President Obama saying, other countries, this just doesn't happen, and with the frequency, we'll talk. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of the violence there. There's also talk about the patches that this 21-year-old Dylan Roof was wearing. Apparently on his Facebook page, he had patches that had to that connected with the apartheid. He also had the Confederate flag, reports say, on his license plate. And now there are talk of many people that the flag should be banned, that the guns should be banned. We're going to hear talk about guns and flags should be banned. If you're listening and you're down in that area, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, especially those that live in the area where now they're starting to, there's obviously talk of a hate crime. This is obviously a deranged individual. And there is also talk that this is another example of terrorism. Do you regard him as a terrorist? There's an article in the Washington Post that now they start to break it out racially. How if this were, the fact that he's white, how he's treated, saying he must have a medical condition. If he were someone of color, they'd be saying that then he's a terrorist. How come he's not a terrorist? Do you regard him, this accused, Dylan Roof, 21 years old, the shooting suspect, as a terrorist? 1-855-400-SAVAGE. 1-855-400-7282. The president said this is, again, another time he has to come to the White House and talk about shooting. I don't see him as helping the situation with race. Once again, do you see the president as someone that is bringing the country together after this another situation regarding race, or dividing? It seems to just be a lot of dividing. It started when the White House started to wage war on law enforcement. And every single time there's been an incident, it seems to get flamed up even more and more. So there's talk about a hate crime, which it seems to be. And we'll play the quote. There's someone that spoke to someone that was inside the church when this horrific massacre took place. But you're going to hear a lot about flags and whether or not Confederate flags should be banned in the South. But President Obama came right out about the guns and even comparing us to other countries. And we'll take your phone calls on it. 1-855-400-SAVAGE. 1-855-400-7282. Let's start on line 2 with Bob on WMAL in Washington. Bob, you're first up on the Savage Nation. This is John DePietro. Hello, Bob.
Today, these people have blood on their hands. For the last year, the media and the politicians have done nothing but inflame racial tension in this country. It's done on a daily basis, every day, all day long. And for Obama to get out there today and look shocked that people are laying dead in the streets, this is what he has built. This is what the media has built. And they got some nerve acting all surprised. They got some nerve calling this a hate crime. Last month up in Baltimore, 20 black teenagers beat the living hell out of a white truck. That wasn't no hate crime. Everything's a hate crime to these people. But be careful what you ask for. You just might get it.
Thank you for the call, Bob. 1-855-400-7282. Friends say they didn't know this Dylan Roth to be a racist. I never thought he'd do something like this, said high school friend Antonio Metz, 19. He had, quote, black friends. A young man with a blunt sugar bowl haircut. Boy, have you seen the photo of this guy, though, folks? I mean, doesn't he has that odd look in his eye. There's many different questions about the prayer group itself. Number one, they say the suspect reloaded 5 times. Number one. Number two, he walked in, said, who's the pastor, and then sat down for an hour. When you see a photo, and this, he looks like there's something wrong with him when you just look at him. You feel awful that this guy sat there for an hour and they just went along. You think you'd be safe in a church, right? You think you would feel safe in a prayer group in a church. He's just sitting there for an hour with that odd look, and he's waiting for them almost to finish. A young man with a blunt sugar bowl haircut. He used to skateboard in a Lexington suburb in South Carolina. He was younger and had even longer hair then. Childhood friend Joey Meek had seen Roth recently as Tuesday. She said she didn't know why he was in Charleston. He was not aware of him being involved in any church groups or anything racist. I don't know what was going through his head, said the mother. He was a really sweet, quick kid. He was quiet. He only had a few friends. It's always that type, the quiet few friends. Joey Meek alerted the FBI after he and his mother instantly recognized Roth in a surveillance camera image widely circulated. As a matter of fact, he was wearing the same stained sweatshirt that he was wearing at their house playing Xbox that day. It's stained because he had worked at a landscaping and pest control business. Let's go to Frank, who's listening on WJR in Detroit. Frank, you're up next on the Savage Nation. Hello, Frank.
Hello. The president said that other countries don't have this problem, but if you look at the Mideast, the Christians over there don't have any guns, and that's why they're so easily slaughtered by ISIS.
Well, not only that. Thank you for the call, Frank. I'm going to read you. I mean, there's an article out today that they don't understand why that beheadings are right now, 100 beheadings in 6 months, why the Saudi kingdom is on an execution spree. And we're one of the nations. Maybe the other nations have a leader that actually brings people together instead of inflaming the race situation. Do you think this is a matter of guns? What about if one of the people in the church had a gun on them? Maybe you don't want to bring a gun to church. Now, the father gave him a gun for his 21st birthday. Then you want to look at the parents. Why were they giving someone like this who seemed to be a loner? His uncle said he, quote, seemed adrift. But then the ability to reload 5 times. If one of those people had a weapon on them, maybe you could have had a different outcome. 1-855-400-SAVAGE. The president was trying to say this is a time to mourn, but he clearly started to go on the offensive against guns. Ken is listening on line 4 on WJR in Michigan. Ken, this is John DePietro sitting in for Dr. Michael Savage, and you're on the Savage Nation. Hello, Ken.
Hi. I'm wondering about this young kid, just turned 21 years old. He had a past history of the way he felt about black people. I'm wondering if his father, who knew all about him and how he was when he gave him that .45 handgun, I wonder if he didn't just tune him up and turn him loose. You ought to be checking at the father, too. Looking at him and saying, why didn't you do something about this kid? Apparently the mother says he's just a sweet boy.
Yeah.
But the father gave him the gun, and 3 months later he's using the gun to take care of maybe the father's business. I don't know.
Thank you for the thank you for the call, Ken. Folks, anyone that I'd like to hear from some people if you're listening in the South about now this talk about they should ban the Confederate flags. He had one on his license plate. A 20-year-old kid, no friends. He's got that lost look if you look at him. Certainly a loner. Who wears patches with an apartheid on your jacket? Never mind, that's what you're putting on your Facebook page. No real sense of direction, and then just seemed lost. And then he has been arrested. Nothing major, though. Apparently trespassing, and also had some drugs on him. James is listening on line 7 on WABC in New York. James, you're up next on the Savage Nation. Hello, James.
How you doing? I'd like to ask what your take is, because I know you didn't seem to really give a viewpoint on. Do you think he's a terrorist? If he is, if he isn't, because it seems like it fits the mold of a terrorist action.
No, I don't view him as a terrorist. He's a murderer, and he is someone based on any type of mental condition. I mean, someone who is driving around with the flag on his plate and the apartheid, and obviously had something wrong with him. No, I view him as someone that I think we'll find should not have been in possession of a weapon. But no, I don't regard him as a terrorist with some of the terrorists that we have out there. 1-855-400-SAVAGE. 1-855-400-7282. Our phone number that's our phone number. The website is michaelsavage.com. Again, this is John DePietro sitting in for Dr. Michael Savage, and this is the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN.
At the conclusion of the Bible study, they just start hearing loud noises just ringing out. And the suspect had already wounded a couple of individuals. I'm one of the survivors, and she said that he had reloaded 5 different times. And her son was trying to talk him out of killing people, and he just said, I have to do it. You rape our women, and you're taking over our country, and you have to go.
I've had to make statements like this too many times. Communities like this have had to endure tragedies like this too many times. We don't have all the facts, but we do know that, once again, innocent were killed in part because someone who wanted to inflict harm had no trouble getting their hands on a gun. Now is the time for mourning and for healing. But let's be clear. At some point, we as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
You're listening to the Savage Nation. This is John DePietro sitting in for Dr. Michael Savage, inviting you to join the program today, 1-855-400-SAVAGE or 1-855-400-7282. The first you heard, that is someone who has a relative who was inside that church when this horrific shooting took place. It is horrible for these 9 victims, their families, a senseless act of violence. Obviously a demented person, obviously racially motivated. We don't know that much about this individual, but they did get him. So he is in custody and hopefully get more answers out of this. Let's go back to your phone calls. Let's go to line 2. Steve is listening on KSFO. Steve.